You wake before the city cockerels, which is impressive, because the rooster chained to the courtyard fig tree hasn't slept since Pompey's last triumph. Your eyes snap open to torch smoke and yesterday's sweat hardening on your tunic like lacquer. Before we clatter any farther down this marble corridor of misery, take a slow breath with me. If your eyelids are already heavy, tap the little like glyph and subscribe to this humble theater of dusty history. But only, of course, if these cracked leather anecdotes actually soothe you. Slide into the comments and scribble where you're listening from and what hour your sundial points to. The legions of night owls stretching from Britannia to Bactria always amaze me. Dim your lamps, perhaps set a fan for that gentle background susurrus, and together we'll shuffle deeper into today's Roman ramble. The iron ankle ring, standard issue, unpleasantly decorative, scrapes as you sit up on your straw pallet. The ring isn't to stop you escaping. Chains snap easier than debts. It's for accountancy. If you disappear, the steward can describe the exact circumference of your humiliation on the stolen property form. Across the servant's solarium, 20 other shapes twitch awake. Micah, the cook's assistant, mutters a sardonic prayer to the household Laris that they spare her another blister. Tullus, stable boy and self-proclaimed future gladiator, practices invisible sword swings until a senior slave hisses at him to save the heroics for dreams. A bronze gong booms once, deep, resonant, a sound that could rattle the Tiber loose from its banks. It's Palestrio, the door slave, enjoying his only privilege, waking everyone else. You shuffle out, sandals flapping, chain tapping a syncopated lament on the flagstones. First assignment, kitchen fire duty. The atrium is still shadow-soaked, impluvium reflecting a sliver of purple dawn. You pass the busts of dead ancestors. Their stone eyes judge your posture. One has a chipped nose. Rumor says the previous scullion tripped while dusting and was sold to a salt mine. The coulina smells like promise and regret. Old fish sauce, garum, ashes, yesterday's lentils fermenting in bronze pots. Cook, big-armed, flour-dusted Livia, hands you a bundle of twigs. Fire, boy, and mind the smoke. Senator wants warm pulls before cockcrow. You squat, coaxing Sparks with flint. Smoke curls, eyes sting, tears mix with soot, the usual Roman collyrium. Above, Livia thunders orders. Spelt porridge here, olives there, honey only if last year's jars haven't crystallized into marble. A junior footboy races past carrying chamber pots. He slips, splashes, curses creatively. Livia promises to teach his tongue manners with the flat of a skillet. But after breakfast, she adds, priorities. Once flame roars, you grind spelt in a mortarium. The quern's rhythmic groan might lull a senator back to sleep. You, meanwhile, are wide-eyed, counting grains like heartbeats. Each seed a reminder that someone else will eat first. In the corner, a caged thrush repeats the phrase it learned yesterday. Fortuna volubilis. Fortune is a wheel. Romans love omens. Slaves live them.
The steward, silken voice spurious, glides in, wax tablets underarm. Inventory, he announces. He ticks off. 3 amphorae of Falernian half diluted, he'll pocket the difference. 2 jars of Spanish garum, 1 suspiciously lighter, 4 fresh loaves from the night baker, and exactly 21 slaves present, breathing optional. You and your ankle ring make 21.5, but he rounds down. Accountants hate fractions. Spurious stops behind you. Remember, he murmurs. Senator Lucullus has guests tomorrow. double rations of charm, half rations of mistakes. He taps your shoulder with the stylus, not hard, just a cold warning, and vanishes to torment someone else. Sunlight finally spills into the vestibulum, turning dust motes into miniature aurae. You plate the poles, gray, steaming, smelling faintly of defeat. Garnish with honey if the senator's mood requires sweetening. Leave plain if he's dieting to fit last season's toga. On cue, Tibia, the pale maid who specializes in silent entrances, whisks the tray away to the triclinium. You follow at a respectful distance, ready for leftovers or lashes depending on reviews. Inside, Senator Lucullus reclines, hair oiled, eyes half-closed in patrician boredom. His wife, Pulcheria, counts grapes, deciding which ones deserve existence. Lucullus sips barley water, grimaces. Too warm, he complains. Pulcheria adds, yet not warm enough to scald parasites. Choose a temperature, dear. Their marital needlework always uses servants as thread. The senator's son, Publius, 12 and cruel, flings a date pit at your forehead. It sticks. Livius Pauls, thankfully, appeases Lucullus. No flogging today. Only humiliation. You bow, retrieve the pit, and back away, chain clinking like applause. Tibia winks sympathy. She'll slip you orange rinds later. A rebellion measured in citrus. Back in the kitchen, Livia licks honey off a spoon, declares the morning a success, and tosses you the dregs. A crust of bread soaked in olive oil. You devour it. Breakfast of champions, or at least of property. Somewhere beyond the courtyard, Rome awakens in layers. Smith hammers, mule brays, gossip of gladiators. You inhale the city's perfume, smoke, sewage, ambition, and prepare for the next command. Perhaps errands to the Subura, perhaps scrubbing mosaics, perhaps being marched to market for resale if the senator's gambling debts grow teeth. But for this fleeting moment, you lean against a sun-warmed pillar, belly barely full, and stare at a patch of sky the color of diluted wine. If freedom is impossible, stillness is a bargain imitation, and you take it. The rooster crows, late, indignant. Somewhere, fortune's wheel creaks. Your day has only just begun, and already it tastes of iron and ash. Perfect conditions for sleep if you're on the outside listening. For you, inside the story, it's simply dawn in chains. You are not certain when the Romans decided eating should be public performance. But by the time you balance a brass platter on your shoulder and slip into the triclinium, the show is already underway. Lamps sputter against the last shadows of dawn, illuminating velvet couches and silverware so polished you can watch your own exhaustion ripple across it like water. The senator's family reclines in textbook poses of cultivated idleness. Lucullus sprawled on the center lectus, his tunic artfully disheveled. Pulcheria poised beside him, fingers drumming the armrest as though auditioning for the role of impatient fury. Publius, their prepubescent heir to all things obnoxious, kicking at a mosaic dolphin and waiting for something living to torture. The morning's opening act is served by Tibia, whose ghost-like tread carries bowls of figs preserved in wine. She glides, you shuffle. She smells of lavender, you of last night's embers and this morning's panic. Livia's steaming pulse follows in your hands, and the performance begins. The senator dips his spoon with the gravity of a priest, then pauses, forcing every eye to linger on the droplet trembling at its tip. The household freezes. One wrong temperature, one stray husk of spelt, and the next act could feature you as the antagonist flogged for dramatic tension. Lucullus tastes. Silence clings to the walls like damp. He swallows, tilts his head, allows the faintest sigh of contentment, and a ripple of relief passes through the room, soft as the hush when an executioner chooses a different victim. Acceptable, he pronounces, magnanimous in victory over porridge. You set the platter down and step back to where shadows still offer anonymity. Pulcheria's breakfast is more complicated, a regimen of virtue disguised as indulgence. She requests a single date, sliced lengthwise, stuffed with pine nuts, drizzled with imported honey, no thicker than a senator's conscience. Tibia presents it on a dish, shaped like Venus's shell. Pulcheria surveys the fruit as though it must justify existence. Finding no immediate flaw, she grants it exile to her mouth. Publius, meanwhile, demands novelty. Yesterday he wanted thrush tongues, the day before lark eggs. Today he points at you. I want a slave to juggle, he says, voice bright with the cruelty of the untested. Your stomach sinks to basement levels of dread. You are reasonably sure juggling is not in your skill set, especially with only 2 hands and 1 chain. Lucullus waves a bored hand. Let him. Some entertainment before the Senate session. Livia materializes at your elbow with 3 stale bread rolls, hard as amphorae shards. She whispers with gallows cheer, try not to drop any, they leave bruises. The chain on your ankle gives you a perimeter smaller than a cheap mosaic tile, but the audience awaits. You flip the first loaf from palm to palm, pretending confidence. A second loaf joins. The rolls orbit, wobbly moons around your panic. Publius claps, giddy. Pulcheria raises an eyebrow. 1 slip means a scold for her upholstery, and she detests scolding more than grime itself. You add the 3rd loaf. It arcs too high. Your eyes follow. Time dilates the way it does when gladiators realize the lion is faster than the hype. Gravity reasserts its dictatorship. You snatch at empty air, miss by a thumb width. The bread hits the senator's forehead with a comedic thunk, bounces, and lands in the bowl of figs, splattering crimson syrup across his pristine tunic. Silence again. Not the taut anticipation of the opening sip. This silence hums with approaching violence. Lucullus breathes through his nose, syrup trickling like a sunrise of rage down his cheek. Publius gasps, thrilled by unscripted drama. Pulcheria lowers her date to the plate as if saving it from the carnage. You drop to your knees. Chain clanks, hands flat, apology gushing. Dominus, culpa est mea, my fault, clumsy beyond reason, punishment deserved. The words spill as fast as the syrup, each Latin syllable rehearsed for survival. Lucullus does not shout. Worse, he smiles. Fetch the newest scourge, he instructs Spurius, who waits like a vulture disguised in silk. The steward bows and departs, the click of his sandals timing your heartbeat. You have tasted the scourge before. A leather strap weighted with lead beads, light enough to paint bruises exactly where a tunic will conceal them, heavy enough to keep memory alive for days. Publius kicks his heels, eager. You are his theater. But Livia intervenes, an unlikely deus ex culina. She strides forward, plucks the offending loaf from the fig bowl, sniffs it, and announces, "The honey is fermented, Dominus." It foamed, the loaf reacted, the fault is mine. Her bulk dwarfs yours, her voice carries a confidence only cooks and executioners wield. Lucullus hesitates. Livia is valuable, her bread lauded by dinner guests. Whipping her might threaten tonight's banquet. He flicks a glance at Pulcheria. She shrugs, bored again. Fine, Lucullus says. Flog the loaf. Spurius pauses in the doorway, scourge limp in his hands. Lucullus clarifies. Beat the bread, 30 strokes, then throw it to the dogs. Publius howls with laughter. Pulcheria dabs syrup from her husband's face with a silk kerchief she will later burn. Spurius, expression neutral, whips the roll. Each lash thuds dully against crust, crumbs scattering like sawdust. You watch, kneeling, chest heaving with relief so potent it's almost giddy. Bread pays your debt. When the execution ends, Livia collects the mangled loaf with ceremonial disdain and nods at you. Return to the kitchen. You scuttle away, half expecting the order to be revoked with a flick of temper. But the senator's attention has shifted to debating whether to sweeten his watered wine. Back in the culina, you grip the table edge until your fingers whiten. Livia slaps her shoulder. You owe me a jug of cheap Falernian, she says. Her tone is gruff, but her eyes hold weary kindness. You vow to steal, no, reallocate, a jug at the earliest opportunity. The next act of breakfast theater is cleanup, which the audience never sees. You scrub fig syrup from silver platters, listening to Tibia recount the aftermath. Lucullus replaced his stained tunic with one embroidered in sea green. Pulcheria praised his composure, code for reminding him who ensures his social gloss. Publius bored quickly and demanded a wrestling match between two dwarf slaves borrowed from a neighbor. The senator agreed. Anything to keep the boy's mischief contained within political alliances. Your task list swells. Prepare midday snack for the wrestlers, boiled eggs and humiliation, polish the senator's speech tablets, and deliver a sealed letter to the moneylender in the Forum Holitorium, discreetly, because senators should not be seen begging for credit.
Spurius returns, silently placing a single grape on the bench beside you. Payment for your terror. One perfect grape, dusty bloom intact. You pop it into your mouth, savoring the burst of sweetness, and for 5 seconds the world is syrup without punishment. The senator departs for the curia, entourage fluttering. Lucullus's bodyguards jingle with chainmail. You follow at a respectful distance, letter tucked inside your belt, ankle ring clinking softly, a constant reminder that even outside the villa, you are tethered to someone else's comfort. Subura greets you with its usual perfume, smoke, urine, coriander, ambition. Vendors hawk fresh bread, cheaper than therapy, unaware their competitor was flogged to crumbs this morning. You dodge a fishmonger's splash, take a shortcut through a pottery alley, nearly collide with a lictor escorting a magistrate. He scowls at your chain, but lets you pass. Runaway slaves don't carry wax-sealed letters. The moneylender's shop lurks between two insulae, leaning like old men after wine. Inside, shelves groan under clay tablets of debt. You hand over Lucullus's plea for extension. The scribe breaks the seal, raises eyebrows at the amount, then scribbles a note. Interest doubled. You wonder if senators ever feel the lash of arithmetic. Probably not. They have bread to flog. Errand complete. You loiter by a fountain where freeborn children toss knuckle bones. One bone lands near your sandal. A boy demands its return, sneering at your collar. You flick it back with just enough spin to impress. His eyes widen, respect earned in a sliver. Small victories nourish. Back at the villa, Pulcheria rehearses hospitality, cushions fluffed, incense burned, peacock feathers arranged. She summons you to test the temperature of her bathwater with your elbow. Too hot? Add cold. Too cold? Add tears. You comply. She slips into the pool of marble luxury, dismisses you with a flick. In the corridor, Tibia shares contraband news, whispers of slave uprisings in Capua, talk of Spartacus a generation earlier revived in tavern tales. You nod, file away possibilities, but rebellion requires time, weapons, and luck, commodities rarer than kindness. For now, survival means agility and listening. The day tilts toward noon. Wrestlers grunt in the palestra. Senators orate to themselves in marble chambers, and you, tenuously undefeated, revisit the kitchen for your promised theft. Livia sighs when you uncork the cheapest Falernian. She pours 2 clay cups, hands you one. Together you sip, leaning against a wall where no patrician eye dares wander. The wine tastes of figs and smoke, and the quiet triumph of living through another act without being written out of the script. You clink cups with Livia. Overhead, the thrush sings Fortuna volubilis, and for one lingering heartbeat, you allow yourself to believe the wheel might spin in your favor, if only for the length of a midday sip. The villa gate yawns open, and you spill into Rome's morning like yesterday's wine, a little sour, dangerously exposed to air. Your ankle ring is concealed beneath newish sandals, but you still carry the invisible scent of property. Other people sniff it the way dogs sniff boundaries. Spurius has equipped you with a wax tablet bearing 3 desperate chores. Collect a bolt of Tyrian-dyed cloth from the fuller, fetch 2 jars of garum strong enough to dissolve politics, and bribe the augur on behalf of Lucullus, who wishes tomorrow's omens to endorse his pending grain speculation. You're also instructed to return soonish, a measurement elastic enough to snap around your neck if misjudged. Gregory, ever faithful, nests in your tunic folds. Even a rat understands the value of backup in the Subura maze. Heat already simmers off the paving stones. Vendors shunt awnings across alleyways, turning sunlight into shifting stripes. You pace beneath like prey crossing a net. Every stall bellows its miracle. Spiced walnuts to cure gout, amulets to frighten idle gods, pickled lark tongues for rhetorical clarity. A barber waves a razor and promises hair so short even lies can't cling to it. Farther on, a perfumer hawks essence of German barbarian tears, exactly as dubious as it sounds. You dodge a woman selling cursed dolls whose eyes appear carved from last week's nightmares. She winks, presses one into your palm. For free, handsome. You slip it to Gregory, who gnaws the straw leg. Curses seldom survive rodent dentistry. First stop is Gaius the Fuller, whose shop reeks of urine vats and ambition. Tyrian purple, he reminds you, must steep in rot before it blooms imperial. Like senators, you mutter. He cackles, presents the cloth. 6 cubits of regal gloom wrapped in waxed linen. Its price equals a small farm, but your signature as courier is enough. Debt is the only currency Rome truly respects. As you leave, a slave girl across the street stares at the bolt with yearning. Purple is forbidden to her, as are most hues besides bruise and dust. You smile apology too small to help, then hurry on, guilt trailing like a snagged thread. Garum next. The fish sauce district could gag Neptune. You pass vats bubbling with anchovy ghosts. Attendants skim ribbons of scum as lovingly as priestesses grooming sacred geese. The merchant, Severus, oily as his product, insists on a taste test. He cracks a jar. The stench punches tears from your eyes. Perfect, you wheeze. He beams, corks 2 amphorae, seals them with pitch. Mind the slosh, he warns. If it leaks, sandals melt. You sling the amphorae with rope, praying preemptive forgiveness from your sense of smell. Half your errands complete, You push deeper into Subura's intestinal lanes, where insulae lean together like conspirators. Here, slave dealers set up portable platforms, displaying human wares alongside goats and second-hand togas. A crier shouts traits: literate Greek, strong Numidian, mild-mannered Gaul, good with children. Each body stands glazed with fear, neck chalked with price. You keep your gaze forward. Eye contact invites evaluation, but one auctioneer notices your chain peeking beneath cloth. "Runaway?" he calls, friendly as a trap. You shake your head, flash the senator's signet borrowed for errands. He shrugs, but his assistant follows at a distance, smelling commission. To lose him, you duck into a thermopolium, the kind where stew simmers perpetually from unknown decades. The proprietor, Harpax, owes Livia a favor after she disguised a spoiled boar as heroic roast last Saturnalia. He offers a ladle of lentils, neutralizes garum fumes with fennel steam, and positions a barrel to block the doorway. Outside, the assistant wanders past, frustrated. You finish the stew, payment a whispered recipe tweak from Gregory. Add dried fig skin for sweetness. Harpax tastes, sighs devotion, grants you free refills for life, which in Subura math equals 2 bowls and moderate dyspepsia. Errand 3 requires the augur, Marcus Triputius, who reads chicken guts for profit. His courtyard is littered with feathered evidence. He greets you in luxurious despair. Business booms whenever futures wobble. Lucullus's bribe is humble, 1 amphora of mid-grade Falernian, but Marcus owes gambling debts to the senator, so he pockets the wine gratefully and promises tomorrow's entrails will spell triumph. You secure a wax receipt, carefully unsigned. Deniability is paramount in religious fraud. You should turn back, but greed masquerading as practicality suggests an extra detour. The bakery selling yesterday's bread at dawn prices. You queue between a one-eyed matron and a legionary missing most of an ear. When your turn comes, you trade a breath-minted thank you for 2 loaves still warm enough to fool memory. Gregory earns crumbs, stashing them in cheek pockets for later accounting. The sun reclines toward noon, and your burdens weigh like bronze on wet clay. Purple cloth under one arm, garum amphorae sloshing on your back, receipt in purse, bread in hand, stray curse doll half chewed in pocket. You are a mobile allegory of Rome, glorious, malodorous, and over-leveraged. All you lack is catastrophe. Catastrophe obliges. Turning a corner near the Temple of Cloacina, you collide with a slave-catcher patrol. 2 burly men and a scribe holding manacles like party favors. They spot your ankle rings, stop you. "Papers?" the scribe demands. You produce the senator's sigil, but the catcher with broken nose snorts. "Could be stolen, quick test." He flicks his cudgel at your knees. Runaways flinch differently, he claims. You stand very still, calculating angles. Amphorae fragile, cloth priceless, bread expendable. You instead deploy language, rapid, formal Latin peppered with names of Lucullus's allies. The scribe hesitates. Politics outsizes suspicion. Broken nose spits, waves you past. You exhale gratitude flavored with fresh terror. Quick step away before they reweigh their risk-reward tables. Near the forum, a procession blocks your path. Vestal virgins escorted by lictors, carrying sacred fire to relight a shrine. Crowds part respectfully. You kneel, balancing amphorae with acrobat caution. Publius appears atop a pony. Apparently he skipped school to pester priests. He sees you, grins shark-like, but the lictor's presence keeps him civil. He merely mouths, "Later," a promise that wilts your stomach more than garum fumes. Finally, the Calian hill rises before you, villa perched like a smug eagle. Inside the gate, Spurius counts deliveries, cloth measured, garum weighed, receipt deciphered, bread sniffed skeptically before he pockets one loaf for quality control.
He dismisses you with a flick worthy of Pulcheria. Livia reclaims the garum, declares you smell like a trireme's bilge, and orders you to scrub amphorae tar from your tunic before serving Sina. You collapse in the slave courtyard, peel off sandals, pour a trickle of water over blistered feet. Gregory curls beside you, burps breadcrumbs, and falls asleep. You marvel at his serenity. Chains mean nothing to a creature born inside walls. Above, evening swallows the sun, and villa windows glow amber, silhouette of Pulcheria, rehearsing dinner grievances. Somewhere, Publius torments a new victim, saving you for an encore. Yet amid ache and fatigue, a strange pride settles. You navigated thugs, stench, bureaucracy, and theology without losing a drop of fish blood or a thread of imperial purple. In Rome, competence is rarer than virtue and twice as valuable. You will not be rewarded, but you are, incontestably, still here. When the gong summons for kitchen duty, you rise, chain clinking, heart steadier than before. The city beyond the walls continues its riot of appetites, but for now you have bread to slice, vinegar to fetch, and a reputation, however microscopic, for returning in one piece. Survival in this empire is the longest art form. You intend to practice it a little longer, until fate or fortune finally misplaces the key to your anklet and sets the stage for whatever act waits beyond another dawn. The senator's household believes clean linens symbolize moral superiority, which is why you now crouch beside a wooden tub big enough to drown a centurion, forearm submerged in water that began clear and has already turned the color of pessimism. Noon light slants across the courtyard. Cicadas drill their deranged hymn. Your back joins the chorus with its own creaks. Around you, heaps of sheets slump like defeated ghosts, awaiting exorcism by lie, elbow grease, and wishful thinking. Livia the cook has temporarily surrendered you to the laundress, Rufila, whose voice is smoke rough and whose humor could pickle olives. Rufila demonstrates the proper thrashing technique. Grip the fabric, whip it over a ribbed board, and imagine the cloth is some senator's tax collector. You mimic her swing. Water lashes your face, tasting faintly of yesterday's garum. Rufila nods. Good. Keep that anger simmering. It's the only soap Rome hasn't taxed yet. Your station includes a basket of Falernian secrets. Fermented urine for bleaching, pumice for scouring, sulfur for fumigation, an alchemist's nightmare but cheaper than virtue. You plunge a toga, swirl, ring, and lay it over a line strung between two cypress poles. Above, the fabric flaps like surrender flags no army will accept. Halfway through the second toga, Tibia appears, clutching the senator's personal napkins. He spilled Falernian, she whispers. Claims the stain looks like Carthage burning, wants them spotless by dinner. She smirks. The senator rarely spots irony, only spots on linen. You add the napkins to the tub, where they bleed wine the hue of bruised pride. While beating cloth, conversation drifts to lice inspections. Mandatory every quartus dies to prevent the patrician family from encountering reality on their scalps. Rufila snorts. A louse is smarter than any senator, at least it knows whose blood feeds it. She flicks something tiny and wriggling from her sleeve into the suds. Instant martyrdom by detergent. A bell clangs from the latrine block, signaling the second part of our midday chores, Mock duty. Rufilla waves you off with a grin of pity. She'd join, but her authority ends at the washboard. You swap wet tunic for an even older one reserved for filth, then gather the sanitation tools, wooden shovel polished by horrors, bucket of ash for deodorizing, and a rag soaked in rosemary to tie round your nose. Gregory opts to stay with Rufilla. Even a rat recognizes hazardous work when he smells it. The villa's communal latrine sits at the back garden, a marble bench perforated at polite intervals, though nothing about the task feels polite. A slave girl named Nape, slight as a reed but twice as bendable, meets you there. Her greeting, "We lost a sponge on a stick down the drain again, try not to chase it." She hands you a torch. Smoke keeps flies at bay and illusions of dignity afloat. Cleaning begins with sluicing. Water from a lead pipe gurgles across the stone channel beneath the bench, intended to ferry waste out to the street sewer. You prod clots with the shovel, muttering apologies to whatever minor deity oversees civic plumbing. Ash follows, sprinkled like funeral rites over the unspeakable. The smell evolves from death to charred death to something approaching neutrality. Nape hums a lullaby. She claims rhythm shortens the chore. You suspect it only shortens sanity. When the bench gleams, within reason, you hunt for lice. Household decree, every linen returned inside must be raked with a bone comb, every head checked. Pulcheria's hair alone contains more territory than Gaul. The inspection line forms in the atrium. Slaves first, then freedmen, finally the patricians if they remember. You kneel behind Tullus, combing his curly mop. 3 lice surrender quickly, flicked into a bowl of vinegar where they writhe like senators caught in honest work. Your turn next. Tibia runs the comb through your stubble short hair. 1, she announces, squashing it between fingernails. You're improving. Last month you hosted a symposium. Small victories. Publius saunters in, objecting to the cue. My head is emperor, he declares. Inspect it first. Tibia bows, though you note her combing grows less gentle. When she discovers 2 lice, he blames you. They migrated, and swats your shoulder with a wax tablet. The blow stings less than the injustice. You swallow reply. Slavery's first lesson is turning words into silence before they turn into lashes. Inspection complete, linens returned indoor. You retrieve Gregory from the laundry, accept Rufilla's reward, half a fig and a pinch of salt, and limp toward the kitchen for afternoon kitchen prep. Salt clings to your tongue like longing. Livia is butchering a moray eel, cursing its refusal to die politely. She orders you to mince herbs, warns that Pulcheria wishes dinner to feature a sauce mild, yet reminiscent of triumph. You're unsure how triumph tastes, sour for the conquered, sweet for the victors. But the herb basket offers only lovage, coriander, and enough rue to flavor regret. You chop until the board turns green, add a dash of defiance and hope. Between tasks, you scrub amphora residue from your arms. Garum scent lingers like rumor. Tibia breezes in to relay gossip. A neighbor's slave sold household secrets to a poet, now faces branding on the forehead. You touch your own brow, imagining red-hot letters spelling cautionary tales. Evening approaches, dragging with it the senator's appetite and expected guests. A questor whose laughter resembles a cough, and an actress famed for tragedies and causing them. Pulcheria inspects the linens you washed. Finding no stain, she nods, startling both of you. Compliments from her are rarer than eclipses. You dare a breath of pride. Dinner service begins. You pour wine, present eel in herb sauce, ensure napkins remain white. The quaestor jokes about grain riots. Nobody laughs louder than necessary. The actress praises the softness of the towels, your towels, and you stand a little straighter until Publius kicks your calf under the table. You neither stumble nor retaliate. Victory enough. After dessert, honey cakes you smelled but will not taste. The guests depart under torch escort. Pulcheria retires. Lucullus dictates a letter extolling his magnanimity in loaning amphorae to the temple, a tax dodge. And servants clean the devastation. You collect crumpled napkins, now perfumed with spilled Falernian. They'll return to Rufilla's tub at dawn, the wheel of cleanliness grinding again. Finally released, you collapse in the solarium. Straw mattress pricks bruised thighs. The day's grime clings where the bathhouse never will. Gregory curls on your chest, purring, or maybe rats don't purr, but this one hums contentment. Exhaustion blinds, yet sleep stalls. Your mind inventories tasks accomplished. Linens beaten, latrines scrubbed, lice counted, ego bruised but unbroken. Outside, Rome murmurs under moonlight. Revelers sing off key, a mule brays, distant legion drums, echo training. Somewhere a slave dreams of running to the sea. Somewhere another accepts chains as climate. You float between the two, chain cool against ankle, hope warm in rib cage. Before dreams claim you, the cursed straw doll falls from your pocket. Its painted eyes stare, almost kindly, now that Gregory has defanged it. You tuck it beside the straw, a strange household god, proof that even curses can be chewed into charms if given to the right teeth. Tomorrow will bring fresh stains, new odors, secret rebellions of the heartbeat. You doze, hearing Rufilla's laugh. Livia's orders, Tibia's whispered jokes spun into lullaby by the night breeze. The linens above your head sway, drying in twilight, banners of a humble survival. And as lids close, you decide that if slavery is a cage, you will line it with clean sheets and silent stubborn humor until someone, fortune, fate, or your own daring, finally leaves the door ajar.
The sun has climbed to that merciless zenith when every tiled roof in Rome could fry a quail's egg. And that means only one thing to a senator. It is time for leisure masquerading as hygiene. For you, it means escort duty. An afternoon hauling towels, oils, and fragile egos through the Campus Martius to the magnificent Baths of Agrippa, where free men perspire in marble luxury, while their slaves perspire carrying it. Lucullus's valet, a barrel-chested Gaul named Blasius, loads your arms with kit, 2 bleached linen towels so soft they might sue for emancipation, a jug of perfumed olive oil heavy enough to drown your optimism, and a strigil, curved bronze for scraping sweat and self-delusion from patrician skin. Over one shoulder, you sling a leather satchel containing the senator's seal ring, in case an urgent document arrives and he needs to sign away someone else's property before the steam room. Spurius clicks his stylus against a wax tablet, eyes you up and down, then adds a final burden. A cedar box holding Pulcheria's latest embroidery, so Lucullus can boast of his wife's domestic virtue between laps. You suspect he will actually use it as a pillow. You, Blasius, and Tibia, commandeered to fan Pulcheria later, march out the villa gate like a 3-slave caravan. Your ankle ring clinks, her sandals slap, Blasius's gigantic feet thud syncopation. Gregory peers from your tunic, whiskers twitching at the scent of roasted chickpeas sold by a street vendor. You slip him one, He files it away in cheek pouches, traveling provisions. The Via Lata teems with midday traffic, litters jolting senators too delicate for sandals, ox carts creaking under amphorae, philosophers arguing whether sweat is the body's apology or its boast. A cluster of legion recruits jog past chanting about Mars and mashed beans. You keep pace behind Lucullus's litter, matching its sways like a reluctant moon around a pompous planet. At the bath's grand entrance, marble columns loom, veined like aged biceps. A doorkeeper in gilded belt inspects patrons, free only, chains discouraged. Blasius presents the senator's ivory token. The doorkeeper's gaze snags on your ankle ring. Blasius growls something in Gaulish that translates loosely to touch him and lose fingers. The doorkeeper decides etiquette can bend for influential masters and larger Gauls. Inside, the air shifts from street stink to perfumed humidity. Echoes bounce under vaulted ceilings, painted with nereids perpetually surprised by their own nudity. Lucullus emerges from his litter, toga already half shed, and hands you a small purse. "Tip the masseur," he says. Then, with a conspiratorial smile, "If he asks, I'm 10 pounds lighter than last month." You bow, purse clinking with half as much coin as he thinks. The ritual procession begins. Apoditerium, changing room, palaestra, exercise yard, tepidarium, warm hall, caldarium, steam inferno, and frigidarium, cold plunge. Free men drift between chambers like pampered ghosts. Slaves scurry like their shadows, hauling oils, fetching water, standing ready with sandals exactly when summoned. You position yourself near a pillar, close enough to assist, far enough to remain invisible. Lucullus strips, revealing a senator's physique, more treasury than temple. He tosses you his tunic, sweaty already, and strides to the palaestra where men of rank pretend enthusiasm for medicine ball games. A medicus with perfect teeth shouts advice. Breathe from the diaphragm. Lucullus wheezes from somewhere lower. You and Blasius watch until summoned. Tibia, fanning Pulcheria, who arrive separately with ladies, mouths a silent complaint. Her wrist aches. The fan is heavier than Pulcheria's gratitude. You mimic sympathy while jostling oil jug. The tepidarium's gentle warmth fogs your eyelids. Mosaic floors depict sea gods riding hippocamps. Steam paints them alive. Lucullus reclines on a bench, motions you forward. "Oil," he commands. You pour a palmful onto the masseur's hands. The masseur begins kneading senator flesh like expensive bread dough. Each groan sends droplets flying. One lands on your cheek. Olive, myrrh, and the faint taste of privilege. Next stop, caldarium. Heat slaps you at the threshold, an anvil of moisture. Lucullus sinks onto a marble seat, sighing like a drafty amphora. You wait, strigil ready. Nearby, 2 praetors argue grain tariffs. Each punctuation mark drips from their chins. The senator wedges himself into the debate with a casual, "My augur predicts favorable winds for Sicilian supply." You supplied that augur. You know the winds blow whichever way the bribe whistles. Still, the praetors nod, impressed. Blasius hefts a bucket, ladles water over glowing tiles. Steam roars upward. You imagine your pores opening, then slamming shut in panic. Moisture condenses on the cedar box. You clutch it higher, praying embroidery doesn't mildew. Pulcheria's wrath would exceed Vulcan's forge. After appropriate simmering, Lucullus barks your name. You kneel, scrape sweat and oil with the strigil, collected in a terracotta bowl. Fashionable Romans reuse body goo as skin cream. You wonder whose idea of recycling that was. The senator inspects the bowl, satisfied, waves you off to dispose of it. You sneak to a corner drain and pour the mix where lesser senators won't step. Even sewage has hierarchies. Finally, the frigidarium, a pool of water so clear you could doubt its existence until plunging chest deep and losing religion. Lucullus shouts profanity you mentally file for later amusement. You stand ready with towel. When he exits, skin goose-pimpled, you swaddle him like an angry infant. Pulcheria glides in, hair pinned beneath a silk cap, politely ignoring her husband's shivers, while her own slaves test the water temperature with sacrificial toes. In the apoditerium, lockers line the walls, each guarded by an attendant who memorizes patron tokens. You find Lucullus's cubby, arrange fresh tunic, sandals, and, at his request, slip a padded corset beneath, the secret behind his senatorial posture. Tibia assists Pulcheria with jewelry. The lady's emerald brooch catches torchlight, flashing warnings to anyone contemplating eye contact. Dressed and perfumed, Lucullus tips the masseur, only half the purse weight. You pocket the remainder, call it hazard pay. He then declares hunger, surprising no one, and orders you to run ahead to Livia. Prepare oysters and dormice. Outside the baths, streets bake. You quick march behind the litter, arms lighter but head heavier from steam. Gregory emerges for fresh air, squeaks displeasure at the salt residue on your tunic. You promise him crumbs later. Halfway home, a commotion. 2 slaves in manacles sprint down an alley, pursued by catchers and shouting citizens. One stumbles, the other drags him onward. Their ankle rings clank in terrifying harmony to yours. For a heartbeat you imagine veering, helping, vanishing into the tangle of insulae. But Lucullus's litter heaves ahead, Pulcheria's laughter rivers downstream, and your chain tugs metaphysical. You keep pace with property, not possibility. Back at the villa, Livia receives the oyster order with a curse. Oysters in summer. Invitation to vomit. She slices garlic for sauce, orders you to grind pepper. Tibia delivers Pulcheria's damp towel bundle to Rufilla. Blasius disappears to oil his own overworked shoulders. Even giants tire. Evening slips in, bringing a breeze that smells of fig leaves and distant sea. You set the dining couches, place Pulcheria's embroidery where Lucullus can showcase her wifely diligence. The senator enters, skin glowing, appetite roaring. He praises the bath's civilizing effect, unaware of the slave you saw collapsed by the doorway, denied entry because his master forgot him. Dinner passes in courses, oysters, stewed lentils, dormice sprinkled with poppy seed, pears poached in honey. You serve, retreat, choreography of invisibility. Publius flicks dormouse bones at your ankle. Gregory darts from hiding, steals them, earning the boy's grudging awe. When the last platter leaves, you are released to the courtyard. Lungs taste in freedom's diluted cousin. Evening air. Straw mattress awaits, still prickly, but seeming softer after marble benches. Blasius sits nearby, humming a Gallic lullaby, absent-mindedly polishing the strigil. Tibia braids her hair, humming counterpoint. You lie back, chain cool against skin. Sleep hovers, but memory of the fleeing slave's needles. You whisper to Gregory, one day. He chirps agreement or hunger. Either way, the night accepts your promise. Somewhere beyond the walls, Rome's baths cool under moonlight, marble sweating away the day's pretenses. Inside the courtyard, a slave closes his eyes, muscles aching yet intact, spirit battered yet unbroken, dreaming of water that cleans without owning and steam that heals without branding. Tomorrow the senator will praise his rosy complexion at breakfast. never suspecting the true cost of a midday plunge.
The night after the baths is mercifully uneventful. No surprise floggings, no culinary disasters, only the gentle hiss of oil lamps and the distant growl of street dogs arguing over discarded dormouse bones. By dawn, however, Rome resumes its habit of inventing crises faster than senators invent excuses. You wake to find the courtyard buzzing with a rumor. Senator Lucullus plans to host a literary recitatio, which means every slave who can read, write, or fake either will be conscripted to polish scrolls and provide cultured background noise. Enter Diodoros, the household's resident Greek scribe, a man whose beard appears to have given up halfway down his chin and whose eyes flicker with perpetual caffeinated irony. He summons you to the tablinum, a room crowded with wax tablets, ink pots, and more unfulfilled book loans than the entire library of Alexandria. Good, he says, spotting you in the doorway, attention fixed on a papyrus scroll. I require a courier, a conspirator, and possibly a meat shield. Preferably in one person. He dips a reed pen, scratches a note in Greek faster than you can mispronounce it, then folds the parchment into a neat square. Deliver this to Cassia, the bookseller near the Carmentales gate, discreetly. You reach for the note. Diodoro snatches it back, scanning the whole way before pressing the parchment into your palm. Also, he adds, voice dropping to a breath, memorize the words in case you are searched. Burn the paper after reading it to her. This is new. Slaves deliver messages every day, grocery lists, lovers' notes, bribes, but rarely do they memorize treason before breakfast. You raise an eyebrow. He responds with a twitch of a smile. Don't worry, nothing subversive, yet. The syllable hangs like a weight on the tongue. You slip the parchment inside your tunic beside Gregory, who squeaks protest at the intrusion. Then you head for the gate. Outside, morning traffic mashes into a single impatient river. Ox carts, perfumed litters, vendors balancing pyramids of onions on their heads. You weave through, bound for the Carmentales district where books trade hands more quietly than contraband, but carry heavier sentences when deemed offensive. Gregory emerges for a sniff, whiskers tasting bread fumes. You pacify him with a crumb filched from the kitchen. The shop you seek, Insula Libraria, is wedged between a lamp maker's stall and a fortune teller's hovel. Inside, shelves sag under scrolls smelling of cedar and dust. Cassia appears from behind a stack, ink smudges freckling her arms. She is freeborn, middle-aged, and rumored to recite Catullus backward when drunk. You produce the note. Before handing it over, you remember Diodorus's instruction and sneak a glance at the first line. Ergo libertas, therefore freedom. Your Latin falters, Greek worse, but the meaning stabs clear. You mouth the next two sentences, commit them to the shaky vault of memory, then pass the scroll. Cassia reads, eyes narrowing. She plucks a candle stub, lights it, and sets flame to parchment until only a curl of ash remains. Tell the philosopher, she whispers, the sparrow is waiting. A code phrase, as dramatic as it is vague. She presses a slim volume into your hands, Aristophanes' Birds, and shoos you from the shop. Outside, you crack the scroll tube. Inside, no scroll, only a thin strip of tin etched with a list of slave names, ours included. Under the tin, a tiny wooden figurine of a chained sparrow. Your stomach knots. Conspiracy is heavier than garum and twice as hard to wash off. You tuck the items back, hurry home, rehearsing cover stories. Mid-street, a familiar voice rings. Publius, astride his ill-tempered pony, blocks your way. What's that? he demands, pointing at the scroll case. You bow, reciting the prepared lie. A comedic play for your father, young master. Aristophanes, full of rude jokes. Publius eyes the cylinder, shrugs. Comedy bores him, and spurs the pony toward some other mischief. Back at the villa, you slip into the tablinum. Diodoros lounges on a stool copying a speech. You hand him the cylinder, murmur, "The sparrow is waiting," and present the burned-away parchment ring. His face stays neutral, but the pen pauses. "Good," he says. "Return tonight after Cena, quietly." You spend the day pretending ignorance, though each clatter of armor in the hallway feels like accusation. During Cena preparation, Livia catches you spacing out over a pot of lentil stew and cuffs your ear. "Season, don't daydream." You add cumin automatically, but your mind churns. Names on tin. Sparrow messages, therefore freedom. Dinner passes without incident, aside from Lucullus misquoting Homer between mouthfuls of boar. After cleanup, you slip through the service corridor to Diodoros's cubiculum. He sits with Tibia, Rufilla the laundress, and Blasius the Gaul, an unlikely trio orbiting a single oil lamp. Your arrival completes the circle. Gregory peeks, then retreats into your collar, sensing tension thicker than pea porridge. Diodoros lays out the tin strip, names shimmer in lamplight. Yours, Tibia's, Rufilla's, Blasius's, half a dozen others, slaves known for sharp tongues, quick minds, or stout fists. Cassia distributes messages via book trade, he explains. Each strip returns here, each with more signatures, a network coalescing across Rome, planning a synchronized petition for manumission, or if refused, a coordinated work stoppage. Blasius grunts. Petitions make masters laugh, stoppage makes them whip. Rufilla spits into a rag. But enough whips, and Rome starves. Laundry piles, ovens go cold, letters undelivered. Tibia balances a needle on her fingertip. We are the hinges. Doors don't swing without us. The plan, Diodoros says, is still embryonic. On the next new moon, messengers will circulate final orders, tasks to abandon, fires to refuse stoking, counting house slaves to misplace ledgers, bloodless paralysis, punishing pockets rather than bodies, to force Senate debate. If we succeed, he adds, a masquerade of limited freedoms could follow. Hope flares, fragile as the lamp. Then Blasius asks the blunt question, and if we fail? Silence. You imagine chains tightened, rations halved, crucifixions lining the Appian like ghastly milestones. Your ankle ring feels suddenly heavier. Diodoros answers softly, then at least the city will know we spoke. The meeting ends with no handshakes, too noisy, just nods. You file back to the solarium, brain ringing with possibilities. Sleep clings only in fragments. A dream where chains shatter like candy glass. Another where Publius discovers the tin strip and sells you to a quarry. Days creep. Rome, oblivious, hums its usual swarm song. You deliver letters, scrub floors, laugh at Pulcheria's jokes about provincial governors, all while rehearsing new moon timing like lines of a forbidden play. Then, 4 nights before the appointed date, Calamity barges in on Sandal Thump. A cohort of Vigiles searches the villa, ostensibly for stolen silverware, but actually, you suspect following rumor, they ransack cubiculums, overturn amphorae. A guard forces you to empty pockets. Gregory very nearly betrays the hidden crumbs, but nothing more incriminating surfaces. The vigils leave with apology to Lucullus and a quiet threat to return. In the aftermath, Diodoros convenes you in the laundry, safe beneath steam clouds. He unrolls fresh tin. Cassia's message scratched in haste. Sparrow's nest burned. Flight postponed. The uprising delayed. Security too tight. Disappointment sinks everyone's shoulders. The wall hopes deflate. Fear evaporates too. Discovery brushed close. Yet you survived. Rufula chuckles bitterly. Room so clogged with lies. Even truth can't get arrested. Elysia suggests smaller actions. Cutting claws, not throats. Over the next week, subtle sabotage blooms. Ink diluted so Senate votes smear. Tunics laundered with extra lies so patrician skin itches at hearings. Kitchen spices swapped so masterful stews taste inexplicably bland. Nothing traceable, everything irritating. Pulcheria blames Livia. Lucullus blames Pulcheria. Publius blames gods. You and allies trade glances over steaming washtubs, a silent choir of defiance. One evening, Diodoro slips you a wax tablet. On it, a single line of Greek, Eleutheria Micra. Leaves half open. He taps your chain. You bend the links until one day they forget why they clasped. You nod, sliding tablet under straw mattress. Beside the chewed doll, Gregory curls around it like a sentinel. Late that night, bells in the forum ring wildfire alarm. Real or false, you'll never know. Lucullus rushes out in a panic, toga askew, leaving villa gates unguarded for hours. You lie awake, chain warm, door ajar. Outside the city stirs, smoke or rumor rising. You could slip into alley shadows, gamble life on the sharp unknown. Yet you stay, not from cowardice, but because liberation, you realize, need not be a single leap. It can be the patient wearing of stone beneath steady water. You turn on the pallet, feel straw prick. Hear Rufilla snore 3 beds away. Picture Tibia's secret smile when Pulcheria's embroidered cushion itched her neck. The wheel of fortune still grinds, but its teeth are duller tonight. You close your eyes, whisper to Gregory. Soonish. Adopting Spurius's favorite elastic word, now repurposed as promise. The rat squeaks assent. In distant streets, the alarm fades, replaced by normal midnight noises. Laughter in a tavern. Clatter of pottery, a single bird, not a sparrow perhaps, but close, flitting across the moonlit roof tiles, free for now, mapping the sky one cautious wing beat at a time.
The senator wakes with the restless gleam a gambler wears when he smells fresh odds. Word has reached him, via grapevine sticky with rumor, that a shipment of Cappadocian slaves has just arrived at the Forum Boarium, courtesy of pirates turned entrepreneurs. Cappadocians, he claims, have excellent calves for staircase duty, and voices polite enough for after-dinner recitations. More crucially, rumor says the quaestor overseeing confiscated property will auction them cheap to clear space for grain stores. Lucullus loves nothing so much as a bargain that turns a human being into a line item labeled profit. Thus, breakfast is gulped, togas adjusted, and you are ordered to accompany him for appraisal, carrying a money pouch that weighs more in dread than in denarii. Blasius the Gaul marches beside you as unofficial bodyguard, half shielding, half herding. Tibia tags along to jot prices on a wax tablet. Pulcheria remains behind, claiming headaches whenever commerce smells like sweat instead of saffron. Gregory nests in your tunic, whiskers twitching at the prospect of livestock markets. Humans, rodents. Rome sells everything somewhere. At the Forum Boarium, livestock bleats mingle with haggling. Pens of sheep line the Tiber bank. Just beyond, a wooden platform hosts the main attraction. 20-odd Cappadocians, wrists bound, chalk tags around their necks. Their expressions range from sullen to shell-shocked, the universal spectrum of recent uprooting. A red-faced auctioneer in a wreath of wilted parsley, stands ready to turn misery into bidding increments. Lucullus instructs you to examine merchandise. You approach row by row, pretending authority while fighting nausea. One young woman meets your gaze, eyes steady, daring you to find fault. Her tag reads Lydia, age 19, literate, skilled in loom. You want to apologize for staring. Instead, you check her teeth, white as your own hunger, because that is protocol. From the corner of your eye, you spot a minor senator named Fabricius bargaining with a broker. They laugh, slap each other's backs, inspect a broad-shouldered man like he's a plow. Suddenly the broker's eyes flicker to you. Your chain flashes under tunic hem. He murmurs to Fabricius. Both glance your way. Instinct curls cold in your gut. Lucullus doesn't notice. He's busy puffing about leg muscle ratios. Staircases, he repeats, need someone who can take trays upward without complaining downward. He selects 2 candidates, a lanky boy of perhaps 15, and a middle-aged cook whose belly suggests familiarity with sampling. He orders you to raise their price tags for final once-over. While Lucullus dickers, a clerk tallies existing head count in his villa. 27, the clerk says, but tax exemptions only cover 25. Lucullus frowns. He'll need to offload surplus to stay under levy. Surplus, you realize, could be any slave deemed less useful than new purchases. Your mind reels through hierarchies. Stable kids, old gardener, or, if the whim descends, the thin crier who once beaned him with a bread roll. The auctioneer begins. Bidding leaps like fleas. Fabricius wins first lot, offering silver plus a case of Croatian wine. Lucullus raises 2 fingers. Cappadocian cook now his for 20 sestertii, a sum smaller than yesterday's dessert budget. Cheers erupt. Lucullus beams. You swallow bile. Next lot, the lanky boy. Lucullus bids low, then higher. A merchant counters. Fabricius sneers and raises again, seemingly just to annoy your master. Lucullus's brows knit. He increases to a number that will gut next month's olive budget. Fabricius matches. Lucullus hesitates, his purse heavier in your hand than in his heart. Then, to everyone's surprise, Pulcheria appears at the platform edge, sedan chair abandoned behind her. She whispers into Lucullus's ear. He deflates, lowers his bid. Fabricius wins smug. Pulcheria motions you closer, pretends to adjust her shawl while whispering, "We cannot feed another mouth, so we sell one." You freeze. Suddenly, a cost among costs. Lucullus scans the line of retainers, eyes settling first on the aging gardener, then on Blasius, 2 indispensable, finally on you. His gaze lingers. You clutch Gregory instinctively, but Pulcheria interrupts. "Sell Sextus," she says aloud. The bedpan boy caught swiping figs. Lucullus brightens. Sextus is expendable and won't fetch much, but appearances matter. Within minutes, Sextus is dragged to the block, bewildered. Lucullus pockets a paltry 5 sestertii. Balance achieved, your neck reprieved for today. As they process paperwork, a commotion erupts near the pens. A chained Cappadocian man has broken free, sprinting toward the river. Catchers swarm. He dodges too, but skids on spilled olive oil, crashing into sheep. Lucullus laughs. Fabricius curses the spectacle's delay. The runaway is clubbed, dragged back, added bruises now included at no extra cost. Freedom, retail price, a shattered rib. You cannot breathe. Across the platform, Lydia, the literate girl, closes her eyes, perhaps finishing a goodbye in silence. The auction resumes, but your mind drifts. You imagine unlocking her chains, sprinting streets, disguises, ships. Fantasy is brief. Blasius nudges you, purse exchanged for receipt, purchase secured. On return trek, Lucullus brags about his savvy acquisitions. Pulcheria feigns admiration, but reminds him a recitatio still looms. The cook will need a day to learn villa rules. Tibia notes expenses on wax, eyeing the purse's thinness. You march behind, equal parts relieved and sick. Back home, new slaves are catalogued, tags removed, names mispronounced, roles assigned. The Cappadocian cook, who introduces himself as Artaxes, examines Livia's kitchen with a professional nod. She tests him by handing a cleaver. He chops leek faster than a judge's verdict. Livia grins despite herself. Maybe she can sneak a nap now. You help assign bedding in the slave quarters. No straw left, so Artaxes gets a folded blanket near the hearth. Lydia goes to laundries. When Rufilla eyes her rough palms and gentle posture, she mutters, "We'll toughen you." Lydia smiles politely, but her eyes remain distant hills. Night drapes the villa. In the courtyard, outgoing Sextus's pallet lies empty, springs echoing absence. You sit there, chain cool against ankle, reflecting on the auction's roulette. Gregory crawls out, noses your hand, sensing unsettled pulse. You whisper that tomorrow you will teach Lydia where water jars hide, small kindness. Diodoros passes, nods imperceptibly. The tinsmith's list of names has surely lengthened. 2 Cappadocians added, Sextus removed, and the wheel creaks onward. Pulcheria's voice drifts from the portico, praising Lucullus's fiscal prudence. Somewhere else, a runaway tends cracked ribs and counts stars above a river he almost reached. You lie back, straw pricking but bed warm, heart heavier. Rome sleeps fitfully, its slaves sleep lighter still, each dreaming of platforms, gavel thuds, and a price that might, by grace or grave, finally drop to 0.
Sunlight barely peeks over the villa wall when the aroma of catastrophe wafts from the Culina. You hurry toward it, ankle chain clinking the morning's first warning, and arrive just in time to find Livia and the newly purchased Cappadocian cook, Artaxes, locked in a culinary stare-down. Between them sits a bronze pot bubbling with something that looks like broth and smells like revenge. Livia crosses her thick arms. I ran this kitchen before you tasted your own teeth, foreigner. Artaxes bows, polite as a dagger wrapped in silk. And I merely seek to improve the senator's digestion, Domina. Yesterday's boar gave him the wind of a cyclops. You suspect calling Livia's food flatulence-inducing is grounds for evisceration, but Artaxes continues unfazed, sprinkling coriander into the pot with priestly precision. Livia smacks his wrist with a wooden spoon. Garum goes first, then coriander. This is Rome, not Cappadocia. He winces but does not retreat. Instead, he ladles a sip, tastes, and sighs bliss. Back home, he whispers, soldiers begged for my stew. Back home, Livia growls, pirates sold you for 2 cheeses and a cracked amphora. The bone lands again, thwack, splashing broth onto the hearth, where it hisses like insulted snakes. Before violence escalates, the door slave Palaestrio clangs the breakfast gong with sadistic cheer. Orders flood the kitchen. Pulcheria craves honey-soaked dates stuffed with almonds. Lucullus demands smoked mullet. Publius wants to feed a visiting cousin something that looks alive but isn't. The morning's menu becomes a riot of contradictory cravings. Livia barks assignments. You fetch flour, Tibia slices figs, Rufilla drags linens to cover countertops against inevitable splatter. Artaxes attempts to coordinate, but Livia counters each suggestion with her own, louder. Soon 2 separate feasts compete for stove space. Livia's Roman classics on one side, Artaxes' Eastern experiments on the other. The hearth, Unused to this bipolar frenzy, crackles ominously. You stir a pot of barley porridge as smoke curls from the pan where our taxis flambés goat sweetbreads and wine. The flames lick higher, kissing up men. Livia shoves past, sloshing garum onto the embers. It flutters, erupts, and suddenly toward the rafters. Right there, she shouts. Artax's counters, douses, flavors. Contradicting reflexes cancel each other. Neither liquid arrives promptly. You snatch a bucket and between the pots, and fling it at the fire. The stench rises, but embers hiss out, leaving soot-slick beans in the kitchen smelling like a cesspool. Carrier glides in precisely then. Her slippers halt at the threshold. It's new. Lydia gestures with a proud smile. Innovative seasoning experiment on successful. Our taxis bows deeply. A small fleeing corner Vesta, swiftly contained by her loyal staff. Pulcheria's gaze narrows. She gestures to you. Slave truth. Resolved with decisive irrigation. Pulcheria inhales this delicately and declares, Lucullus expect breakfast in 9 sips of the clepsydra. If it stinks, he will find drinking. She pivots, retreating behind the Pompeian crowd. Moving around on our taxis, you and your foreign flambe, keeping to the spoon. Your fish sauce was tender. They might strangle each other, but time hurries them back to task. Later salvaged broth in the clean pots. Tibia wafts vinegar to mask linger in the cream. Rafilla opens the door and has no fifth form. Thankfully, the fifth form breaks through. Taxes slips you about in the bird. People stare, not too sure. Trust, he whispers. Confronting her, Hope's gates, Carter's temples. You glance at Livia, she's busy skinning meat. You grind the herbs, add to porridge, stir until steam carries the cool, hurtful scent. You fill her tastes, eyes wide open. You spend the tea coffee, finish upstairs, whiskey shotgun, to the night club. You call a sail in his chair. It's not sweet. It taps the cup. Turns forward. He sips on it. And realizes what pleases its easily home. And he path his gut with a contented feeling. Except glares at our taxis because they draw the nerves. Push the portal. This portion includes a single lifted note, praying pause worded prayer-like, courtesy of an earlier rat perhaps, minus Gregory, who enjoys diplomatic immunity. Silence hangs until Lucullus's praise booms down the stairwell. Exquisite. A collective exhale flutters through the kitchen. Livia wipes forehead, looks at our taxes. Perhaps your goat stomachs can simmer here, under supervision. Artaxes smiles. I bow to Roman spoons. Peace lasts 7 heartbeats. Then the kitchen door slams and a lictor strides in, tunic splashed with red seals, his baton tapping annoyance. By order of the aediles, he announces, inspection of household kitchens for adulterated spices. City officials, desperate to curb food fraud, now raid villas at random. The lictor's assistants spread out, sniffing jars, dipping fingers, scribbling on wax like crows picking carrion. One finds a pot of poppy seeds. Narcotic, he accuses. Livia retorts, dessert garnish. Another discovers Artaxes' purple herb bundle. He pinches, sniffs, scowls. Unknown additive. Forbidden. Artaxes explains the herb, Perilla capitata, imported legally. The inspector tastes, then sneezes violently, eyes watering. Suspiciously aromatic, he signals to confiscate. Lucullus storms in, robe half-belted, shocked to find civil servants between him and seconds. He bellows senatorially. The head inspector cites Edict 19. Unauthorized spices subject to seizure, fines, triple market price. Lucullus's complexion reddens past pomegranate. Pulcheria appears, fans herself calmly. Is Rome so oversupplied with virtue it must tax flavor? She purrs. The inspector, no match for patrician sarcasm, falters but stands his ground. Livia whispers, "We can't afford fines." Artaxes whispers back, "I can fix." He steps forward, producing a scroll sealed with a wax sparrow, the clandestine network's mark. But the inspector knows only wax. Artaxes claims it as official purchase order from the questor's office. The inspector breaks seal, pretends literacy, squints at Greek scrawl he can't decipher. Pulcheria, ever opportunist, leans close, says, "My husband co-sponsors that initiative." The inspector, sweating, snaps a salute, returns the herbs, and flees with dignity trailing like torn parchment. Lucullus exclaims admiration for his wife's deft tongue. Completely unaware of subversion he just endorsed, Artaxes exhales, you stifle a grin. Livia mutters a prayer to every kitchen god from Vesta to whatever the name of the leftover bones. By afternoon, dishes washed, hearth scraped, and find Artaxes alone, polishing the embattled bronze pot. He nods toward the corridor, safe to speak. "Networked," he whispers. He raises eyebrows. "I only cook," he says. But his smile returns the sparrow seal. Before evening prep, Livia summons you both. She hands Artaxes a ladle, her finest, and declares, "Keep this on loan." To you, she offers a wink. Keep the herbs coming, discreetly. Peace signed in garlic and smoke. That night, after servant's supper of crusts dipped in leftover sauce, you lie on your straw, muscles throbbing but spirit oddly warm. Kitchens burn, inspectors sniff, but alliances simmer stronger than garum. Gregory licks green from his paws, herbs approval. Somewhere outside, owls hunt, street dogs quarrel, senators plot. But in the Kulina tomorrow, unlikely comrades will dance again between the flames, seasoning rebellion one pinch at a time.
Dusk slips across the villa like watered wine, staining mosaics purple before draining into black. For slaves, this is the deceptive hour. Chores technically finished, punishment still very much on the schedule. Tonight promises extra peril because Senator Lucullus has announced an intimate sacrificium domesticum, a private ceremony before the household gods, thanking them for newfound prosperity. Translation: he closed a grain futures deal and wishes to bribe the divine audit office before invoice comes due. Preparations begin with torches. Blasius the Gaul thrusts 2 into your hands, the flames licking olive smoke up your nostrils. Tibia totes a tray of incense cakes. Rufilla carries laundered linen runners to cover the marble altar. Lydia lugs a jar of cheap Falernian designated as libation, after which whatever remains will magically upgrade to Pulcheria's personal reserve. The lararium itself is a niche in the atrium wall, carved pilasters flanking small bronze statuettes, the lares with eternal smiles, a larva, ancestral ghost, who scowls like he hasn't forgiven unpaid taxes, and a miniature bust of Emperor Claudius no one dares dust too vigorously. Tonight a new figure joins. Lucullus's own likeness in terracotta, painted hastily by a hired sculptor who was paid more to flatter than to sculpt. It resembles a roasted pigeon wearing a laurel. Lucullus enters in a spotless toga candida, Pulcheria at his side, glittering serpentine jewelry. Publius trails, sulking. He requested to invite friends for dice, was overruled. Instead, he clutches a bronze ladle to pour wine offerings, planning mischief. You and Blasius stand as living candelabra, arms aching from torch weight. Shadows stutter over the atrium pool. Flames reflect in Laris's metal eyes, giving them a conspiratorial wink. Livia arrives last, bearing a platter. Honey cakes shaped like piglets, and a real piglet, roasted, mouth stuffed with fennel. She places them before the gods, muttering that bronze statues eat better than kitchen staff. Lucullus clears his throat. Let us commence. He chants half-remembered verses to Vesta and Janus, mispronounces an epithet, corrects himself, hopes no deity was listening. Pulcheria lights incense, smoke coils delicate as rumor. Publius ladles wine, but the boy's aim is creative. First splash baptizes Claudius, second dribbles onto the roasted piglet, third threatens your sandal. You lean away. Gregory pokes his nose from tunic to sniff potential droplets. During prayers, silence is mandatory, except for the senator's pious mumble and Pulcheria's occasional stage whisper cueing him. Yet behind the wall, something else murmurs. Male voices, low, urgent. The tablinum sits adjacent, its lattice door half closed. You catch a phrase. Cicero suspects the shipments. Another. If the vote fails, we sail at once. Treason, or at least expensive fraud, bubbles where incense cannot mask it. You risk a glance. Through lattice slats you glimpse Diodoros setting out scrolls for what should be tomorrow's recitatio. But seated opposite is Senator Fabricius, the rival bidder from the auction, and a third man cloaked in nondescript gray, clearly someone who pays extra to be unnoticed. Diodorus's role as scribe evidently includes moonlighting for covert deals. Lucullus raises his terracotta effigy, presenting it to the Lares like an actor angling for applause. Fabricius's voice dips. Your partner flaunts too soon. The grey man replies, let him. Vanity blinds faster than law. Their words vibrate along marble, reaching your torch hand with alarming clarity. Pulcheria signals for final libation. Publius, bored, tips the entire jug. Wine cascades, flooding altar, piglet, floor. Lucullus sputters. The Lares seem delighted, cheeks glistening crimson. You kneel to blot spill with linen, but secretly angle ear toward lattice. Fabricius. If Cato's faction exposes the shortage, grain prices spike. We buy low now, release stock after panic. Profit triples. Greyman. Transport secure? The Ostian port is crawling with tribunes. Fabricius. Cargo hidden under amphorae labeled fish sauce. They laugh. You stiffen. Yesterday's garum amphorae suddenly reek of conspiracy beyond fish. Lucullus finishes prayer, oblivious to side conversation undermining his virtue display. Pulcheria claps her hands, declaring the sacrifice successful. Successful meaning no one died of smoke inhalation. She orders slaves to distribute honey cakes among household deities. Interpretation: store them for breakfast. Tibia collects piglet. Artaxes appears to salvage dripping platter. Livia supervises salvage rites. As the family exits, Lucullus announces nightcap in the library. Fabricius and Grey companion slip from tablinum, join him with practiced nonchalance. Diodoros, gathering scrolls, catches your eye one heartbeat longer than casual. A silent plea or warning.
hard to parse with arms full of fire. Blasius extinguishes torches in the courtyard basin. You linger, folding wine-soaked linen. Gregory darts to lick stray syrup from piglet glaze. The senator's conspirators settle behind library doors, voices muffled. Tibia approaches Whisperlight. What did you hear? You recount fragments, Cicero, shortages, hidden grain, as she knots eyebrows. Fabricius profits if famine worsens, she mutters. Typical senator sport. She hesitates. Diodoros wants evidence. Can you fetch? Risk multiplies like lice in summer, yet the spark of rebellion from previous chapters smolders. Tonight, you ask. She nods toward library. They'll drink until tongues wag. We'll be invisible as polish. Plan forms. You, Tibia, and Rufilla, expert at retrieving forgotten linens, enter library under guise of cleaning spilled wax once Lucullus snores. Blasius stands guard. Lydia distracts any prowling freedman by feigning need for translation assistance. Gregory volunteers by existing. Hours crawl. Kitchen slaves retire. Lucullus and guests down a third amphora. Voices slur. Laughter thick. Finally chairs creak. Lucullus decides bed awaits. Fabricius and Greyman depart via garden, murmuring of dawn rendezvous at Portus. Library torches dim. Only a single lamp remains. You slip inside. Shelves press in, heavy with scrolls complaining of dust. On the central table, wax tablets bearing fresh grooves. Tibia slides stylus shards beneath nails to copy impressions onto soft scrap, reverse carbon copy, while Rufilla folds the senator's discarded napkin over still wet signet imprint, sealing a letter. Gregory scampers atop chair, sniffing crumbs, resisting feeling conspiratorial evidence. Sudden shuffle, Diodoros emerges from shadow alcove, candle stub in hand. You freeze, Rufilla gasps. He raises finger to lips. I left the last of the books, he whispers. Take everything. He hands you a roll of papyrus, shipping manifests disguised as poetry. Proof of letters of birth.
Dawn crawls up the Calian hill, like a prisoner reluctant to face parole. Its first gray fingers prying at shutters, and coaxing torch smoke into the shy light. You have slept little, an intermittent doze punctured by every creak of floorboard and distant clang of bucket, each noise a possible herald of discovery. Beneath your straw pallet lies the papyrus shipping manifest Diodoros entrusted to you, still rolled around a reed core fragrant with sea salt. Close beside it rests a wax fragment Rufilla copied, the impression of Lucullus's signature crusted into its surface as neatly as a footprint in wet clay. Together they form the sharpest dagger a slave can wield in Rome, written proof of senatorial fraud. Your eyelids ache, your chest hums with a thrum of unspent fear, but dawn is insistent. A rooster, though you swear it suffers insomnia, crows as if paid per note. Gregory stirs within your tunic, scratches, then settles again. You exhale and rise carefully so as not to wake Lydia or Artaxes sprawled nearby. The kitchen's hearth must be lit. Pulcheria insists on warm goat milk before sunrise prayers. An empire may be poised on scandal, but breakfast remains a tyrant of its own. Inside the collina, embers slumber under ash. You coax them with dry twig, Livia's well-used flint, and a silent petition to Vesta that one small spark might ignite empire-shaking conflagrations just as efficiently as it warms a pot of milk. When flames catch, the copper cauldron sighs, iron croons, and your limbs remember routine. Draw water, measure grain, slice figs for Lucullus's chronic indigestion. The familiarity of labor steadies nerves better than prayer. Soon servants gather like sparrows around crumbs, Tibia still rubbing sleep from eyelids, Rufilla fastening a scarf against morning chill, Blasius grumbling that dreams of retired legion service always end with reality's slap of chamber pot duty. Artaxes ladles boiled barley into wooden bowls, adding a wink of honey that Livia pretends not to notice. For a few moments camaraderie feels thicker than years of hierarchy, a fragile dome under which conspirators share stolen warmth. But the household's machinery can't be stalled by communal porridge. Spurius arrives, stylus already poised. Clepsydra marks first quarter, he announces. Senator expects full attendance for recitatio rehearsals. His gaze lands on you, lingers half a beat, perhaps noting smudged eyelids, and the crier will sweep the tablinum before the orators arrive. He pivots away, sandal taps fading like metronome strokes. You exchange glances with Diodoros, who materializes from the corridor holding a sheaf of newly inked verses, Lucullus's latest attempt at patriotic poetry. Diodoros's beard twitches in coded greeting. He utters a single word as he passes you. Tonight, hope and terror pinch your lungs like twin fingers. Tonight, the plan that stalled after the idol's kitchen raid has been rescheduled, apparently with less caution and more urgency. You spend morning hours sweeping marble, dusting scroll shelves, eyes darting for eavesdroppers. Lucullus strides in trailing an entourage of minor gentry, eager to praise his rhetorical flourishes, while silently competing for a slice of his grain speculation profits. He declaims a passage comparing Rome to an eagle soaring over barbarian provinces. The metaphor flaps weakly. Polite applause follows. You clap too. Prolonged silence would brand you inattentive, and inattentive slaves invite disciplinary improv. At midday, the senator receives word from Ostia. The clandestine grain shipments have arrived safely under the guise of fermented fish sauce. He beams, toasts the messenger with spice wine, and orders Livia to prepare a celebratory cena large enough to stuff hubris itself. You overhear the messenger mention that Cato's faction remains suspicious, but bribes circulate like bees in lavender, sating potential stingers. Lucullus chuckles, confident the Senate's hunger for kickbacks exceeds its hunger for justice. It is then Tibia slips beside you, kneeling to tie her sandal strap. "Third hour of night," she whispers, barely shaping the words. "Lararium again. Bring tablets." She straightens before your startled blink can register, and glides away with the efficient grace of someone who has balanced secrets longer than trays. The afternoon drags under the weight of expectation. You collect linens, polish amphorae, rehearse escape routes inside your skull. Each pathway tangles with risk. If caught smuggling documents, crucifixion is the mild scenario. Lucullus once hung a thief from his garden pergola merely for pilfering figs. Yet something within you, maybe the herbs Artaxes slipped into last night's stew, maybe the cumulative ache of unsteady hope, insists movement beats stagnation. As twilight leaks orange across rooftops, Pulcheria's headache forces the recitatio to end early. She waves away compliments, retreats to her chamber, and orders silence. The senator dismisses guests with promises of tomorrow's banquet, then summons a bath. Good fortune. Household retires sooner. Corridors clear quicker. You shovel ashes, dump slop, watch the sky tint from amber to plum. When the final courtyard's lamps are trimmed, you duck into the laundry. Rufilla already waits, her hands shaking only slightly as she unrolls the wax copy and tucks it into a hollow reed. Tibia enters with a stitched pillow, Pulcheria's own, producing the hidden napkin bearing Lucullus's seal impression. She slides it inside the reed. Blasius arrives last, carrying a small burlap sack clinking with objects. He tips them out, civilian wax tablets, letters the guard intercepted from the docks, each stamped with the same gray man's insignia. Proof enough, if one knows Latin arithmetic. Your task is to transport the bundle into Rome's knight to Cassia, who will dispatch sparrow couriers across the city. But creeping out alone risks patrols. Tibia proposes a diversion. Lucullus has requested stargaze and wine on the rooftop terrace. She will handle service and accidentally drop a tray, drawing Vigile's attention to the main gate while you slip through the servants' postern across the garden. The plan unfolds faster than conscience can object. Tibia ascends with the tray of cups. Moments later, the shatter, the senator's roar, Pulcheria's scolding echo like cue drums. You dash across vegetable beds, sprint to the low gate, Gregory bobbing in rhythm to your heartbeat. Rufilla hands you the reed bundle through the slats. Blasius lifts the latch. You vanish into alley dusk. Rome at night throws long, dangerous shadows. Torches sputter in iron brackets. Drunk revelers weave between lamp pools. Vigils patrol like restless wasps. You hug wall lines, tucking reed inside tunic. Gregory pokes his head out once, then retreats. Too much noise. Too many cats. Halfway to the Carmentalis gate, a voice hisses from archway. "Slave, halt." A city watchman, bored and predatory. He notes your collar, demands travel pass. You bow, claim delivery of leftover mullet bones to a pig farmer. The guard laughs, gestures for a bribe. You produce a single bronze of Pulcheria's wine allowance. He grumbles but lets you pass, uninterested in midnight pig cuisine conspiracies. At Insula Libraria, Cassia pulls you into candlelit hush. She unseals reed, eyes skimming text, before you can exhale. "This is enough," she says, voice scraping relief. She leads you to back room where scribes copy documents at speed. By dawn, sparrows sing. You ask what comes next. Cassia glances at the cracked ceiling, listening for gods or leaks, and answers. Senate hears testimony at noon. Aediles, tribunes, even Cicero invited. Some will scoff, others will smell opportunity, but the city shall know. She presses into your hand a small wooden tablet coated in fresh wax, blank except for one word incised lightly. Fiducia, trust. Our signal, she says. If skies fall, break this. You pocket it beside Gregory, who tries to gnaw wax before you tap his nose. The return journey feels shorter, powered by adrenaline and the heady possibility of sunrise justice. Near the villa, you glimpse Tibia in the shadows, wiping spilled wine from her sleeve. She smiles wanly, diversion successful. Blasius ushers you through postern, locking it before curiosity can follow. Inside, Lydia hands you a wet cloth to erase city grit from face. Artaxes passes a cup of warm herb broth to steady trembling. You crawl onto straw just before cockcrow. Sleep floods like river water when levee breaks. Dreams swirl, the lares melt, becoming sparrows carrying scroll banners across forum sky. Lucullus's terracotta effigy grows wings, tries to escape but shatters on Senate steps. Gregory rides an eagle, squeaking proclamations no human understands. Morning slaps you awake with Palaestrio's gong. Your body protests, but duty drags you upright. Lucullus is already pacing his tablinum, fretting about tribunal schedules. Unaware bombs tick in ink. During breakfast service, he mentions hearing rumors that the Adals plan a sensational hearing on grain fraud. He laughs, confident none can touch his ledgers. You nearly spill porridge at irony's weight. At the 11th hour, a messenger from Cassia arrives, not to the villa, but to you via kitchen boy, a wax sparrow, wings etched wide. The signal, documents delivered, hearing confirmed. Your chest thrums like a lyre string plucked too tight.
At the 11th hour, a messenger from Cassia arrives, not to the villa, but to you via kitchen boy, a wax sparrow, wings etched wide. The signal, documents delivered, hearing confirmed. Your chest thrums like a lyre string plucked too tight. Late morning, a herald parades streets announcing Senate session open to public viewing. Citizens flock, drawn by whispers of scandal. Lucullus dons formal toga, certain his oratory sword will sever any accusation. Pulcheria pins emerald brooch, ready to glare holes through detractors. You, Tibia, and Blasius accompany litter, official pass permitting entry to gallery. Lucullus enjoys displaying well-ordered household. Diodorus attends as scribe, quill sharpened like surgeon's knife. The curia pulsates when you arrive, senators murmuring, equities jostling for seat, plebeian spectators craning necks from upper benches. Cicero himself presides, eyebrow arched in perpetual theater. On a marble dais, evidence scrolls lie stacked beside amphorae labeled garum, the disguise now peeled to reveal grain dust. Cassia stands among presenters, plain robe hiding steel resolve. Lucullus mounts rostrum, begins honeyed denial, trade fluctuations, pirates, Cato's paranoia. But Cicero waves a hand. Cassia steps forward, unrolling the shipping manifest you ferried. She reads the list of falsified cargo, stamps, signets, gasps ripple. Fabricius pales. The grey man lurks near door but is seized by lictors before slinking out. Then Cassia calls witness, Diodorus. Lucullus swivels, thunderstruck. The Greek scribe unfolds wax copy Rufilia etched, describes clandestine meeting, cites quotes about treble profits. Cicero requests corroboration. Tibia produces Pulcheria's napkin seal. Rufilla confirms the linen laundry date. Each piece clicks into mosaic. Lies crumble. Lucullus sputters, staggering under weight of paper blades he never saw sharpened. Cicero pronounces investigation escalated to quaestio de repetundis, court for extortion. Lucullus's toga loses radiance. His lawyer requests recess. Denial shrivels. By sundown, Senate suspends Lucullus's privileges pending trial. Assets, including villa, temporarily seized. Slaves, considered evidence, are placed under city guardianship rather than sold, a rare mercy designed to prevent tampering. You stand in courtyard at twilight as magistrate reads decree. A municipal steward, kind-faced but firm, assures household staff they will remain employed and protected until verdict. Chains, he states, are unnecessary for cooperative witnesses. He produces keys. One by one, ankle rings click open, falling like tired manacles onto dirt. When your own ring drops, cold air kisses raw skin. Feeling is so unfamiliar you wobble. Gregory scampers around your foot, squeaks triumph. Blasius laughs boisterous enough to wake Vesuvius. Rufilla weeps into laundry cloth. Tibia slips wax tablet into your palm. Fiducia scratched away, surface clean. Trust repaid, she whispers. That night, freed yet not free, verdicts await. You and comrades gather in Colina, where no one shouts. Livia ladles celebratory stew. Artaxis adds forbidden herbs with legal impunity. The Lares above the hearth grin as always, but tonight their smiles seem conspiratorial accomplices, rather than indifferent idols. You lie on straw bedlit by lamplight, filtering through open window, chainless ankle marveling at its own lightness. Outside, Rome murmurs, carts rolling, lovers squabbling, dogs claiming territory. They care nothing for Senate drama. Yet somewhere beyond rooftops, a sparrow flutters, carrying whispers of ink and wax and unlikeliest courage. Sleep descends gently, no longer predator but companion. In dream, you walk forum stones barefoot, Gregory trotting beside, each step neither hurried nor hunted. Citizens nod, indifferent to your status. Scrolls rustle like leaves. A wooden tablet inscribed with new law waits in Cicero's hand, ready to carve space in which small freedoms might widen. Dawn will bring formalities, perhaps new masters, perhaps true papers of manumission. You cannot know. But as the villa settles, cool breeze smelling of distant fields wafts through atrium, and for the first time you sense the future as more than a corridor of locked doors. And that is how the day closes, without chains, with breath unhurried, with wooden tablets still unwritten, and with the quiet, profound realization that even the most ornamental of gods might, if plied with enough honey cake and inconvenient truths, bless the humble notion that a human being is worth more than the price fetched on an afternoon auction block.